Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Are You In? Now, tonight I will be reviewing another album that I had written up an album review in November, but didn't get the time to put it out until now. So, tonight I'm talking about Cold World by Of Mice and Men. Now, for those of you who don't know who Of Mice and Men are, they are a metalcore slash alternative metal band from Costa Mesa, California. Um, so current members include Aaron Pauli as the bassist and the vocalist, uh, Phil Manasala on lead guitar and backing vocals, David Valentino Artiega on drums and percussion, and Alan Ashby on rhythm guitars and backing vocals. Now, something to that's very important for this particular album is at this stage they also had another lead singer, Austin Carlisle, and he was the lead vocalist from for a lot of these CDs. They've had four CDs, uh, three CDs prior, including Of Mice and Men in 2010, The Flood in 2011, and Restoring Force in 2014. Now, I haven't heard the first two. I do remember really liking Restoring Force. It probably would have been in my top 50 if I had put out a list that year. So this one is from 2016, and it did make my top 50. I just never put out a full top 50 for that year. But to find out why, let's go over some of the highlights and lowlights of this album. So the big thing for me is when these songs are on their game, they're really interesting to listen to. Songs like a Ghost, which is my favorite album of this song on the album. It's a 5/4 song with an interesting feel. Just grows very well. Contrasts both singers very well on this song. The grittiness of Carlisle with the power of Polly on the chorus. Very interesting all the way through. Love the melody on there. I really like to harmonize on this song. And it may be a song I may cover at some point in the future. It's a really cool song, and whenever I think about this CD, I think about this song. And the 5/4 meter works very well with the imagery of the lyrics. There's one particular phrase, maliciously unstable, that works so well in that 5/4. Definitely a highlight on that album, even though it's not a single. As for the singles, they are pretty good. Real, the second single on the album, is not. It doesn't break any ground in terms of singles or in this genre. But there are some cool things on there. Again, the contrasting sounds of Carlisle and Polly work very well on this song as well. And it has some really cool guitar lines. It has some really cool harmonies, especially during the bridge. And even has some little things thrown in. If you listen to it with a dissecting ear, you'll hear some interesting things. There's a little part when they say start, stop, and they pause the sound, which cool idea. Even in the bridge, they throw some triplet ideas into the drum and the guitar parts to make it, another interesting little thing that you don't usually hear in these type of singles. It also has a really interesting take on depression, about anxiety, about all these things, and it shows in the music video as well. It's a really interesting video to watch if you take a second to watch it. Another really cool song on this album. Then my third favorite is Game of War, which is the opening song, and it builds so well. It's very, it's out of left field a little bit. If you're expecting a metalcore kind of sound at the beginning, it's more Tool esque, uh, uh, Tool light song, if you will. Uh, Kind of droning, really interesting harmonies, and it builds throughout the song, and that's why I really like it. It's a really awesome way to start this CD, and it's has another deeper meaning to it. It's a song about the San Bernardino shootings, um, so the lyrics add more weight to this after knowing about that. Um, and one thing in particular that I really like on some of these songs, on Real, on Game of War, they work the what we call parallel scales really well. So both of these songs are in C, but they use parallel ideas. So sometimes they take from C major, sometimes they take from C minor, which uh, you hear that a lot in certain songs, those type of ideas. But it's always really cool how people intersperse those ideas. So when you're listening to both of those songs, pay attention to that. Um, it, you might not get it the first time, but if you listen, a second or third time, you might hear those contrasting ideas and how they work. Another song that I might cover at some point in time, maybe even an a cappella version of it, because it has a lot of really cool stuff on there. This is an interesting CD because for me, I hear a lot of different. Um, hear a lot of different influences. So, like I said, you hear some sort of like a Tool-esque sound on this song. Also on The Hunger is another one that feels a little bit like that. Um, you even get um, versions of like Breaking Benjamin on a song called Away. It feels a little bit like a Breaking Benjamin song. Doesn't do as well in terms of the sound as Breaking Benjamin would. It falls flat on some parts, but again, influences there. Um, and I definitely feel a little bit of 3 Days Grace. I feel a little bit of 12 Stones. Um, it's all over the place in terms of influences. Now, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Another really interesting song is Pain, which is the other single from the CD. It's in 6/4. It's a very chromatic bass sound. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what key we're working with, which to me kind of works well with the lyrics as well, because it's a song about pain. It's a song about uh, literally talking about the pain that everyone has, and discomfort. When you feel think of discomfort, you think about something that's not necessarily, uh, you know, something tonal in terms of music. You feel it's more, all over the place. Something where you can't um, pinpoint as to where uh, the key is. You know, that's where I feel discomfort, and that's another form of pain. Um, the imagery of the words work really well as well. There's one line that says, "Separate skin from bone, digging at my flesh like a schizophrenic with a blade." Which, my God, if you even just think about the imagery of that, you know how well that works in a song like this. The only downside for this particular song is the bridge doesn't need to really be there, but it's another really cool song, and it has a good video if you are willing to deal with some uncomfortableness and uneasiness in it. I always feel weird watching it. Um, so that's the good stuff. So like I said, when it's good, it's really interesting. When it's bad, though, it is very lackluster. So uh, Relentless is probably the worst. It is the worst song on this album. And when I said there was a 12 Stones influence, um, I like 12 Stones, but again, they're the type of band again where it's bad. It's very bland and very unoriginal. And this particular song should not be on this album. It doesn't really stand out in any way other than being annoying. It's, you know, talking about like fighting, I'll be relentless, and it just is boring and bland. I don't know why it's on there. Another one on there is Contagious. It's a little bit better, but it's just, again, it's another one that's like kind of bland. There's some triplet breakdowns that are interesting, but other than that, not really. Or that in the line of my pessimistic attitude is contagious. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Um, Other than that, it's a really throwaway song. And there, it seems like there was a couple of those. Even like the interludes. There's one really interesting one in terms of chord progression, which is the plus sign one, right before Away, which has the chord progression of C minor, B flat, E flat, F minor. Has a That's a really cool progression, and I like that one. But Minus doesn't do anything for me. It's right before Pain, um, but it doesn't really do much. And it feels like there's a lot of those on here. Down the Road, another lackluster song that has that 12 Stones influence. And it all culminates to Ahead with Transfigured, which is the last song on the album. And this is where I could sum it up. It's another song that is alright. It's okay, but it doesn't do enough. And that's where this is, an overall solid CD and a lot of interesting ideas if you're willing to take a look. But the problem that happens with the CD is it's not consistent enough to warrant, this has to be a must listen. There's a lot of interesting songs on there that if you're willing to take a listen to it, go for it. But like I said, you might have to muddle through a couple of lackluster songs. I will say the nice thing about it is most of the good stuff is in the beginning. So as you go on, you'll notice that like it tends to drag down in terms of quality. So if you listen to the first half, then you'll feel like you've gotten your share of it. I would recommend the first half. Second half, not so much. But again, it's not horrible, and it goes by quickly. Honestly, it doesn't feel like a long CD, whereas some other ones, a la Hydrograd by Stone Sour, that one felt like it went on forever. This one doesn't so much. So it doesn't create the sin of being boring and long. So I would say if you are a of Mice and Men fan, definitely take a listen to it. It might be a little bit more mainstream than the other ones. If you are an alternative metal fan, or that type of sound, if you've liked 3 Days Grace, if you've liked 12 Stones, if you've liked Tool, if you like Breaking Benjamin, I would say definitely take a look. Everybody else, it's you don't necessarily have to listen to it, but again, first half is much better than the second half. Now, what I think is interesting, and I'm curious to see what happens, is Carlisle is now gone from the group, and it's now just Polly as the lead singer. So I'm curious to see what happens next, and I get the chance to take a look at that because they have released a new album called Defy, and that came out in January, and I think I'm going to try to take a look at that for next week. So if you like this, of course, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Let me know what you would like me to review in the future. And, stick around because if you like this one, hopefully you'll like the next one with the brand new Mice and Men CD. But until then, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.